Hey, history peeps. It's kind of crazy because it's only been like 2 minutes since I've done my last video, but for you guys, it's been like a day, 2 days, a week. Who knows? Or maybe you're binge watching this, just trying to get ready for a test. And this talking is really, really annoying. And you're wondering, why is he going on? I just need that content. I don't need him to just sit here and talk about God knows what. So, with that in mind, what are we talking about today? We're talking about another building block, another just kind of thing out there in the world that was necessary for the Founding Fathers to kind of put together our Declaration of Independence as well as our Constitution. This is actually something called the Enlightenment. What's the Enlightenment? Well, hopefully by the end of this video you will be enlightened and you'll know. That was great. Okay, so the Enlightenment is basically at its base a philosophy. And the name of the game in the Enlightenment is a word, capital R, reason. Reason. You could say reason is the reason for the season of all these revolutions. You probably don't know me that well yet, but just so you know, the jokes get worse as the year goes on, so buckle up. But basically, what's reason even? What do they even mean? We would probably use the word logic now, and it comes from, along with the Enlightenment, around the same time there was something called the Scientific Revolution, where more people were looking at the world in a scientific way. The Enlightenment as a philosophy said, okay, we can take some of these scientific lessons where we observe the natural world and then we see how things logically work in it. We can take these lessons and we can apply them everywhere else. So that can be in our society, governments, kind of our literature even, and our art. Okay, and the Enlightenment actually covered all sorts of things and is side by side with that scientific revolution, and kind of also a part of it. Religion was also, people started looking at that in a logical way. So what does that kind of look like in government? Well, people started to question, why do we just have a king who, might be king because an ancestor of his was really strong or a really good military man, and now his descendant's king and he can kind of just do what he wants? Does that make sense? A lot of them said no. A few of them did say yes, with some asterisks. They're like, okay, yes, but. So they started thinking about some of the basic questions of the world around them. And this movement starts well before the American Revolution, but that's really important because all of our kind of founding fathers, or a lot of them anyway, would have been really steeped in Enlightenment thinking. And they would have read I'm going to talk about 3 guys today, but they would have read these 3 philosophers. They would have been very familiar with them. Okay, same with the guys who drafted our Constitution, Declaration of Independence, Bill of Rights, okay, all sorts of things like that. So, basically the Enlightenment is what? It is a philosophy where we look to reason to explain the world around us, and we try and make the world a more reasonable, we would probably use the word logical, place. So how does this affect government? Well, I'm going to talk about 3 key philosophers, none of which are actually Americans. Okay, they are Europeans, and even I mentioned our Constitution had this. Even the idea of having a constitutional government is a pretty, Enlightenment-centric thought, right? You're going to plan out how your government's going to work. You're going to write it down. You're going to follow the rules. So the first one is a guy named John Locke. He's an English guy, and he posed the question, why do governments even exist? What is the purpose of a government? Okay, by his time, which is still hundreds of years behind us, governments had existed for a very long time, and he's saying, why do these things even exist? He believed that a government's role, why they existed, was to protect 3 things: people's life, liberty, and property. Okay, life, liberty, and property. So, just so right off the bat here, you might notice that sounds very similar to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, Thomas Jefferson had clearly read his John Locke. And so in the Declaration of Independence, he kind of gives him a little shout out there, but he changed property to pursuit of happiness. So in John Locke's view, individuals need these things. You need your life, duh, or otherwise, why are we even here talking? You need your liberty, freedom to do certain things, and you need your property, which you use to be, a prosperous person and make a living one way or the other. So it's actually based on protecting the individual in his view. Right? Because if you don't have a government to protect your life, liberty, and property, that group of people over there, or just your neighbor who hates you or whatever, can come burn down your house and have no consequences. Someone can come take your life and have no consequences. So Governments are instituted to protect those things in broad and narrow ways. And people can interpret those, especially a word like liberty means a million different things to a million different people. So if the government is not good at these, according to Locke, if the government does not do a good job of protecting these rights, or even a lot of times you'll see in history governments actively take these rights from people, these three things from people, it is, he says, kind of the right of the people, and really even the duty, to overthrow that government, which is one of the reasons Thomas Jefferson was probably putting him in the Declaration of Independence, I think. So if your government is doing a terrible job of protecting your life, your liberty, and your happiness, you and 100,000 of your best friends can get together and overthrow it. That's totally fine, according to John Locke. Alright, the second philosopher we're going to talk about is a guy named JeanJacques Rousseau. And Rousseau was a big believer in something called the social contract. Okay, so what does that mean? In the natural world, theoretically, you as a person are absolutely free. You have a right to do whatever you want, whenever you want to. That means if I see you have an ice cream cone and I want to take it, cool, I'm down. I have absolute freedom. The world can't really run that way, though. So the government is supposed to protect its citizens, so you give up some of that absolute freedom in order to gain protection from your government. Okay? So Rousseau thinks the government can protect those things also by taxing you and creating good things like schools, police departments, roads, fire departments, stuff like that. And he believed that people should put aside some of their individual freedom to protect basically what he called the general will, but we call the general welfare, which is another phrase we have in our Constitution that you'll see. So you give up some of your personal freedom, your absolute personal freedom to do terrible things. You give some of that up so that the government can keep order and you can build a prosperous society kind of for everyone. And that's called the social contract. So if the government violates that and isn't protecting its people, oh man, we're going to have problems. Right? And the people might get angry and overthrow that government. If the people violate that, oh man, you're probably going to go to jail. Alright, and next we have Montesquieu. And he has a big idea, Baron de Montesquieu, I guess I should call him a baron, he might get upset otherwise, called the separation of powers, which is one of the ideals of our Constitution. So this is important to our Constitution here. Okay? And really, most constitutions, modern constitutions, operate this way more or less in various ways. He says, I, the Baron de Montesquieu, I hate tyranny and I hate despotism, which is just another fun word for tyranny, basically. And he says government has three basic functions: to make laws, to enforce laws, and to then interpret those laws, which I know if you're making laws, enforcing them, or are you interpreting them, we'll actually talk about that in this class. Because guess what we have? Separation of powers. So in the systems at the time, the king was either did or was responsible for a lot of this, or pretty much directly put everyone in power who did all these things, or could manipulate everyone through, their power, they're a king, to get all this stuff done. That wasn't universally true in every country. He was French, so in France that was more true than in, let's say, like England. So he believed the best way to prevent tyranny was to split up those three jobs. We call them three branches. So you have one group of people to make the laws, right? Then you have someone to enforce the laws, and you have someone to interpret. So those three branches are always kind of competing and working together however they need to. And that's kind of his big idea that most countries, really, but America specifically for us, followed him. Oh, excuse me. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything here. He said it was important to make sure they kind of had some equal power. That's not necessarily true in how a government actually functions, but it's always, your branches always need to respect the powers of the others. So we'll talk about those three branches rather soon, I think. So yeah, that's the Enlightenment. Our Declaration of Independence is steeped in this language: what's just, what's natural, what's right, why governments exist. Our Constitution is a plan of government. Okay, our Bill of Rights solidifies a lot of those things that people should have. So we still deal with kind of the legacy of Enlightenment today, which, as far as our government, I think we all agree that that would be a pretty good thing. We hold these near and dear in our society. So hopefully you feel a little more enlightened. Yep, same joke, twice in the video. Deal with it, and I'll see you later.